And I would like to also call up Jeff onto the panel, and I would like to introduce and welcome two further panelists. First one is Pascal Stiegelmann. He is of the owner's family of IKA, one of those companies that I've frequently talked about, those medium-sized world market leaders in their niche type of Baden-Württemberg companies. In that particular example, they are leaders in laboratory, analytical, and processing technologies, and they have spun out a company that's Real World One, where Pascal is the CEO, and Real World One is in the VR, AR field, and as I understand, the original idea was to support their own training procedures. Please join us on stage. Pascal, thanks very much for joining and supporting, and then I would like to introduce Armin Pohl, who is the CEO of Mackevision. He's one very visionary CEO here, transforming the company from a stage of more or less a dozen companies into something that was just acquired this year, February. I think the closing was, you said, by Accenture, and is now a key part of the strategy of Accenture in the field of 3D visualization and computer generated graphics. Please join us on stage. Please have a seat here. Thanks very much for joining here. And the topic of the panel actually is VR and AR. And yes, we have very different views here. Obviously, computer-generated graphics, images, in particular in the automotive field, and marketing and sales. Klaus, you have the human-machine interface, I guess, the industrial application. Jeff, you have this view on a gaming and entertainment industry, and for you it's more about the training. But before we step into this, Pascal, if I may ask you, this is one of those examples where a very classy family-owned business actually went from a more traditional industrial context really into what we now call the digital world. Could you just share a bit of, what were the motivations? How did this do? Did you have to, have hard arguments? Was it an easy task? Maybe you could just explain a bit about that.
So, as you mentioned, we are a medium-sized company. We have roughly 1,000 employees, and we develop laboratory, analytical, and processing equipment, mainly for the chemical and the pharmaceutical and the food industries. We are really good in what we do. We have great engineers working around the world. We have great product innovation in our traditional fields. And this is kind of a conservative business, traditional business that works very well. We live from this business and we love the business, but at the same time we know that the world is constantly changing, just as it has been changing in the past, and technologies are constantly changing, and there are new technologies arising, and we are thinking about the future of our company, of course. So we see it as our responsibility to deal with the latest technologies and with the most, call it maybe revolutionary technologies, or with the technologies that are going to massively impact the daily lives from all of us, but also from our industry segment. And virtual reality is just such an incredible technology. When we first were dealing with the technology in 2015, we were directly extremely impressed by the sense of presence and by the technology, and there was no doubt for us that this is going to be the next major step in computing platforms, just like the tech industry also says. So we are creating a virtual reality platform, a multiplayer-based virtual reality platform for science and for the industry, where training is a big part in it, definitely. Companies can use virtual reality as an excellent tool for training, but it's also an environment where people will be able to meet and talk to each other, where companies can have a representative space, show all their instruments fully functional to potential customers, to sales representatives of their customers or service people, but also creating a space for scientists to communicate on their daily research problems, for example. So for us, it's really about creating a community basically in virtual reality for science and for the industry. And we're very passionate about this spin-off company, about this project, and strongly believe in the future of virtual reality and augmented reality.
Perfect. Thanks very much. And Armin, I'm just because there's this overarching theme on the conference, a bit about transforming the industrial landscape also in Baden-Württemberg as a challenge. And so one option, of course, is that traditional companies, by themselves, step into this new world. In your case in particular, this is an example where an innovative market leader actually was acquired. In your case, you merged with Accenture. And as I understand it, Accenture perceives the competence of Mackevision as an option to step into new applications, and at the same time, as I understand, Mackevision or your vision was that Accenture helps that business to grow in a more global span. So it is an example where, Mackevision was not exactly a startup, but just taking the model of a smaller, very innovative company and a larger incumbent merged in order to benefit for both sides. Could you, just elaborate a bit on your experience? I know it's just a few months down the road after that deal, but what were your considerations, your initial experiences here? What is your expectation, how this is going to pay out for the both partners here?
Okay, so there are a lot of topics we could tap in your question. First of all, so Mackevision was started as a classical video post-production company in end of '95, so that's long years ago, and we were really developing, not really on a strategic level, but that started 12 years ago, so where we realized, okay, servicing just agencies or the automotive companies around here is a nice thing, but it's not bringing us forward. So we're following a clear strategy, and this is a little bit coming to what Jeff said in the beginning. So what could be helpful advice for entrepreneurs? So we were building a strategy and we were following it. We were believing into that, and we were trying to stay ourselves and stay true on it. So and then we decided only to do things which we are passionate about, and that probably is not a guarantee to be successful, but it's far better than going to play your money in a lottery. And so we were very soon focused on the automotive industry, makes some good sense in the region here. And the second business stream we're doing is visual effects for maybe familiar with Game of Thrones or Lost in Space or these things, and I also did some things for other big shows like Independence Day. And I would say, okay, the one is mainly focused on the automotive industry, taking engineering data and building this up for being able to visualize the complete product range in all variations to all devices and in all channels simultaneously. So that's an industrial approach, and this is what makes the difference of being a rendering house or building something which is scalable in big numbers as well. And we developed a lot of technology to enable our customers to still have a creative input for the agencies into that pipeline. And this is what we realized with the changing world of our customers, which is always important for us. And again, it comes exactly to what Pascal said. You need to stay fresh. You need to reinvent your company in a permanent way. So because if you're not making yourself obsolete, somebody else will do. And so we never want to wait for that, because there are so many smart young people out there having lots of ideas. So we're always trying to challenge ourselves, like, can this be done better, or what would be the next step? And so learning what the automotive industry is having in front of them. Yesterday you learned a lot about that. That is impacting our business, depending to 85% of our revenues on the automotive industry. Gives us the thought of how could we help them to sell more and better, and what does it mean if you're handling data of a car, which will be in future connected with data of the users, because there might be not only an owner of the car, but a user group, and where's the car placed, and so on. So you learned a lot about that yesterday, and so we understood that we need to develop us being an end-to-end provider, really seeing that a Daimler will be probably a competitor to Amazon or the other way around, or are they partners or whatsoever. So the world is going to be very complex, and so we thought we need to add more know-how in the IT sector. We need to add more know-how in really being front-end developers, because we are mainly delivering content. And so we started to work on project-by-project base with huge companies like Accenture, like IBM, like lots of other big names you are all aware of. And so we thought, if we are going to proceed with our way, we're being in competition with them, which is not making us fearful or so, but we thought maybe there is a smarter way, so we were very strategically entering into a dialogue with just a handful of companies where we thought they have the global approach, which we think is needed for that, and who have the money to probably invest. And so we weren't looking for investment money, which is a lot there on the market in a classical PE sector, but Accenture in the end was the right choice, because it's not only how you were putting it, that what is in for Mackevision, what is in for Accenture, that's a very natural outcome if you think what is in for the customer. So this is always the approach, what is our added value to the market, and now really being able to deliver something from end to end. First of all, in the automotive sector, there will be also things in industrial equipment and in consumer goods, and we are having a pilot project with TRUMPF at the moment. So we'll see. That's very promising. What's going on there? We have also some kind of virtual validation platform going on with Bosch. So. Visualization from marketing and sales is moving into supporting engineering processes. So the world is going to be far more complex than we had this in the past, and we are amazed with now being part of Accenture, as difficult as it might be for some of our people to be now part of a huge monster of 460,000 people, but it doesn't feel like so. It's a really cool bunch. It's a high performance intelligence network. So this is what I'm experiencing, and everybody is really very helpful and supportive to make us feel home.
Brilliant. Very nice to hear that. Thanks very much for the insight into that, Jeff. I know you're traveling the world quite a lot, it's kind of not a very common thing that someone coming over from the Silicon Valley would invest in a German startup like you did in Holodeck VR. I know that in the CGI field and also in VR, AR, there tends to be very good startups in Germany in particular, also established companies, if we think about CGI in the film industry, for example. So what is your view on the global scene of that technology? Would you think that Germany is kind of, situated very well here? What do you observe?
Well, the educational systems well, first of all, in general, educational systems in the world are failing, I think, our young people. But there's been such a strong emphasis in Germany and other EU members for enough years that the talent level is really, really high. That's why I come here to find startups who I think have a tremendous amount of potential. And as I said before, I think there's a tendency in Europe not to appreciate the abilities that you have right inside, and not to be able to somehow or another. There's a reticence to let the world know what a fantastic operation you're running, how much education you're providing just on the job to your employees, and the new innovations that you're creating. That's it. Now that the U.S. could be argued to be abdicating its role in the world, and it's a perfect time, I think, for the EU to step up and take the leadership roles. I don't know that you want to particularly, but you've certainly got the capacity to do it. And I would encourage all of you to try to adopt that attitude now. This is the perfect time in the world to assume you're the rightful role that Europe should be playing in leading the world. Because the U.S. isn't going to do it anymore, at least not as long as we have our Trump problem. And so I'm just amazed. And when I see the stuff that you're doing, it's fantastic. I haven't seen that in Silicon Valley. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but it's here, and it's you've got the talent, you've got the skills, you've got the accomplishments. When I hear you talking about all of this stuff, I'm thinking with VR, I of course love the idea of entertaining, being entertained with it, but it's really a powerful educational tool. I mean, that can transform the way people learn so quickly and easily. And the fact that you're applying it in the automobile industry, I just find that for me, that's the way to change the world, is to educate people in a different method, and I think VR can do that, and you guys are doing that. The stuff you're learning, have learned involving factories and the whole process that you laid out there is a fantastic accomplishment, and I think it should be applauded. I mean, and it should be exposed to the rest of the world. That's the thing that somehow or another it hasn't been, and I'd love to see it.
Okay, thanks very much, Jeff. If I take on your revolution kind of projection on what the impact of VR and AR is, Klaus, I mean, looking at, in particular, also the applications that Jeff showed, Pac-Man, for example. One way to look at it would be to say, well, or Pong, okay, it's a reference, so it's kind of neat, but a different way to look at it is to say, well, we had Pac-Man, so we had Pong, and now we do the same thing, just using kind of a, well, more fancy approach to it. Okay, it surely is better and fancier and so on. Another way to look at it was saying, well, it's not that we do the things that we did yesterday just with different means. It allows us to do fundamentally different things, and it's more like a disruption type of technology. What's your view on that? Is it more like doing things a little bit differently, better, whatever, or is it really disrupting in organizations? And how is that, in your view, if that is the case, going to happen?
Yes, to do only a little bit better is not enough, because everybody can do this. So we have to disrupt, really, and we have to disrupt the own organization. We have to completely change mindsets, but not to make a mistake to lose the experience of the past, to combine with the good things and the experience of the past and disrupting with the new thing. This is the next level, because we have to earn the money with the things we have today, and they are value in the market, and we should not get rid of them, but we can add complete different things to it. Not only selling a machine and a remote service for this machine, selling a new experience, how to be successful with these machines. And not only with this one from TRUMPF side, also with all the competitor stuff in the smart factory, because we know there is competitor stuff in every smart factory. They did not buy the things from us. And so we have to connect this, and this is a challenge from the data, how to bring these simulations to make the augmentation or to make the virtualization together from different parts of partners or competitors, which is both a separate level. So, because sometimes it's easier to work with a competitor, and sometimes it's only possible to work with a partner. But we have to disrupt both thinkings. Not the one is better than the other. And then we have a challenge with the new technologies. And they getting started to be robust enough. They are now working. We have the right user experience feeling. And the time is now ready.
Okay. If I take your notion, in particular what you said about integrating also competitor products, that kind of for me seems to hint into the direction of platforms, so that VR, AR very much also may turn into a platform-driven business. I mean, Pascal, what's your experience in that? Is the platform notion a very important consideration when you think about how you want to expand and grow your business and how you also further develop your technology?
Definitely. I mean, the use of virtual reality or augmented reality. Today we call it virtual and augmented reality. We have two technologies. At some point they're probably going to merge together into one technology. Let's maybe call it virtualities. The use and the benefit of these technologies is there for everyone. So that's also kind of our motivation. We've developed our virtual reality platform out of the experience that we have from the daily business of ICA, where we know exactly what the problems of industrial companies are. And we're specifically developing solutions and tools for industrial companies and for scientists around the world. So if we develop this out of our experience and also for the mother company ICA, why not have other companies around the world participate in this technology, use this technology and benefit from the technology? And at the same time, the idea is to really have a space inside virtual reality where, I mean, people from all over the world can meet. If you think about how much time and how much money companies today spend for traveling, for example, or for exhibitions, or for sales trainings, or the salespeople in general. So this is a general problem every industrial company has. Salespeople today explain the same products over and over again for years. They spend 80% of their time in explaining the same products to potential customers. This is a waste of their intelligence. That's a waste of their time, actually. So virtual reality for us also is a new way of, it's a new information platform. We can create content inside virtual reality. We can also record content. We can bring a technical specialist inside virtual reality. We have fully functional instruments in there, and we can record what people explain about this instrument inside virtual reality, and then show this content to potential customers, just to talk about sales. So this is a general problem that all industrial companies have, and a tool that everyone can benefit from. So sure, I mean, if we develop great technology, share it to everyone who's interested in using it, and also help. This also helps the virtual reality community to grow. And actually, we recognize that there is really a great interest in virtual reality from companies. We have a really great collaboration with SIG, for example. They're super interested in virtual reality. They have a variety of projects they are now working on also with us. And we're talking to the leading companies out of our branch, and we run into great interest about virtual reality. So the interest is there, the benefit is there with today's technology, and let's see what things will look like also in 5 years. I mean,
okay. That's always the issue. If I could see how the world would look like in 5 years, I would be up on the screen on my yacht in Barbados and so on.
I meant
so unfortunately,
technologically, what virtual reality hardware will look like.
That certainly, and in particular, if you mention that human factor. I mean, if I may ask, so if I look at this whole thing, mixed reality, computer-generated, imagery, there seem to be at least 2 technology layers, so software and still some specialized hardware. But there's also this creativity aspect. I mean, if we look at the immersive character of the gaming experiences you've shown us, Jeff. And one would think about, what to do with this. Certainly, it's not an engineer creating that, so it's some, storytellers and whatever. What's your experience on that? Like, because these are disciplines that typically are like way, far away from each other. Typically, would not work in the same space, not work on the same, or at least would only work the Disney way, so very sequentially. So you start with the storytellers, and then, at the end, you have the doors. How did you do that in Mackevision, and how was your experience of that interdisciplinary interaction here?
So sometimes I have the impression I'm running a zoo, and this comes because we really have people who are engineers or have their degree of doctor in physics, and there are creatives who haven't been seen any university, and this is not an issue where you're coming from. It's just, do you have the right mindset to be able to work in a team, and what is your contribution to that? And we're trying to have a really permanent exchange between the disciplines, really trying not to build silos. If you're then going into a scalable business for long-term contracts with customers, then you have people who are doing on an ongoing basis the same things. things, but we're really trying to have also an individual exchange, and that also everybody there are lots of intelligence in the company, and that they have a platform where they can place their ideas, and where we also have shootouts and quotations where people say it's not in the end a democratic process. So in the end, it's always about budgets and do we have an opportunity to sell this to the market. But everybody can be heard and can influence this. And this is how we're trying to develop our things forward. So it's not a sequence that some kind of an creative guy is doing something about a storytelling. It's always a combination of what do we have in technology and what is the best idea to make the best effect with that technology. So it's really using both parts of the brain, and if you just say, hey, VR is a cool thing, so what? It's just a tool. So you can use a stone if you have the right idea to use it. And telling a story, okay, is always influenced by what is the technology I'm using. So storytelling has been changed from doing paintings, which was some kind not only decoration, what we today believe, but the kings of the past have been telling their stories on huge screens, but this was just a picture painted with oil colors, but there was no other way of documenting things, and that was not a documentation, that was, I wouldn't say fake news, but that they were always tuning reality. So that happened with day one, when the first man was standing in the cave. That was an interpretation of reality. And so it's because this tool and this brain was able to do that, and so VR now is just a next technology, and the creators need to think around, okay, what can we do with that? And storytelling will be changed dramatically, not only in the gaming engine, so there will be gaming and cinematic storytelling is getting closer, and I've been standing already in the cave with Smaug in Lord of the Rings, and when you're standing there with a VR device on your head and the dragon is just moving over you, and then you realize, okay, normally the director of a film has the chance to guide the audience because the video the film is edited, so the angle of the camera, and so you're really taking somebody by the hand, and you're just getting dragged away. So now you're standing in an environment, and maybe audio is far more important because you need some orientation, and then you have a cut into the next scenery and say, whoa, what's that? So. And this field is completely untouched at the moment. It's uncharted territory, and I believe the right, bright, creative minds will use these technologies in a way we can't even think about today. And then I'm totally with you. So let's see what's in there in 5 or 10 years, and depends on what the real world in politics is letting us do. Because the Trump problem you have been just mentioning is more or less international thing. So it's not that Europe is at the moment really on the run. So hey, there is that space, and the Americans are busy with themselves, and so we are now taking the lead as the last outpost of democratic nations. The reality is that all over the industrial nations and I don't know the percentage, but part of them are just not part of digitalization, are not part of globalization. And if we're not being careful in believing, oh, it's such a nice future, we are moving ourselves into that, and we are letting behind half of the people that could be firing back in an absolutely unwanted way, and all the dreams of how nice the future could be are simply just going away. And if you're looking back in history for hundreds or thousands of years, if you're losing a too big portion of the people in a country, you get some kind of negative energy, which is making you lose probably all of your achievements in the past. And this is coming back to the one thing I saw on your slides, and yeah, we have a task here all together, and not just being blind for probably a growing part, and someday a majority in important countries, that we are trying to let the others be part of this development, and not being careful not to be arrogant. And I can't say more to that, but I think that's the biggest difficulty we have in front of us about talking about digitalization. And no, if we don't have a prosper economy, nobody will buy any products. And so. That's it.
So yeah, when we had the reception at the ministry and on Monday evening, we already touched a bit into this notion of future of work and the digital divide and the social impact of that. The potential social impact of that is certainly a challenge in this whole movement or phenomenon of digital transformation. And surely, if we cannot take care, or if we don't manage to take care of that, we do not need to care too much about the technology side, because then what really is relevant is happening on the street. And if there's something positive about Trump, is that it is kind of a revolution, but it is within the institutions and not with guns on the street, right? So it's still the mildest form of that, if you like. But let's say, turning that a little bit around into the technology angle again. What I find fascinating about this whole thing, it's kind of a mix in different dimensions, and we've talked about mixed reality, talked about mixed qualification. Then another thing is the role of data analytics, AI, what you pointed out before. What's your view on that? Does AI, big data, play a big role in the further development, Klaus?
Yes, sure. Without the data, we are not able to make the simulation which is needed for a good experience for virtual reality. So we need this data, and we need this data not only on a single point. So we have more enabling technology for communication, for example. Maybe a 5G environment could be help to solve some technical problems with latency of networks. If we want to control with this new virtual realities technologies combined with data behind artificial intelligence, we have to do this in a real time. It's not the right word, because it's different in machinery business real time than in normal economies. But we have to do it at the right time, not with a delay of seconds, so with a delay of milliseconds. And then the German issue also have to be told about security, about all the issues of security of data, of the personality. Because if you saw your demos with Mr. Trump, yes, blockchain can solve something, but it's not the only technology. So we have all this what's called trustworthiness behind the safety features from the technology for robots, and also the personality data security things.
Thank you, and please keep seated. I just wanted to open the round for questions from the audience, so I think we still have time. I'm very sorry, I keep the tradition of not keeping the time schedule. I'm very sorry about that, but I still would like to give the chance to one or two questions from the audience, if there is one. There is one, yeah.
Just more of an observation. We're looking at different fields of technology. We're looking at the retail sectors, we're looking at manufacturing. One of the key things that we should remember is that behind these technologies is still basic engineering, which then moves on to smart engineering. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind, because when we introduced things like just-in-time management, everybody jumped in, they optimized all the processes, one slight failure and the whole system comes down. How do we guard against some of these pushes where everybody wants to be totally optimized, take the best sort of opportunities, but not realizing the basic practice that they should follow?
I think it's more a technical question.
Yeah.
Klaus, would you feel comfortable in answering?
Yeah, I cannot answer directly your question, because there's multi-dimensions of the answers. But on industry, the only thing is to earn money. And if we cannot find a solution to earn money, we cannot prioritize a new technology and our process. So keep this in mind. But I have no solution for your answer. But if there is no value behind all we are doing, if it's only fun, and fun is a value for gaming, but not for industry. Then we have to make other decisions. But yeah.
I would say just that the gaming, you mentioned this Pac-Man and Pong. Those to me are gateway drugs. I mean, to allow masses to easily understand the power of complete immersion and a presence in a different reality. Then because that will then build more and more people and get more and more people involved and not leave people behind. You know, it can get everybody can enjoy that and understand it, and that will lead to an economic imperative that then leads to the industrial use of these kinds of things too, and educational and all that stuff. So, I think that it's a matter of time and just spreading. How many how long did it take for smartphones to get to, what is it, 2 or 3 billion now in the world? That's including so many people that have never been included before in this. So it's moving that direction, I think.
I see. Perfect. Thanks very much. I would like to give you that very good statement to finish that panel. Thanks very much to my panelists for joining me here. And as a tradition of this conference, I would like to heartfully say thank you very much to you. Armin, thanks very much for joining. Klaus, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Jeff,
thank you.
You get one too.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pascal, for joining us. The parallel sessions, as you may have noticed, are kind of pushed back 15 minutes. I hope you have a fruitful day today. Hope you have interesting insights and discussions, and see you all later. Thanks very much for joining the panel.